What are the cycles fathers pass down that sons are left to heal? What if being a man wasn't about holding it all together, but learning how to let go? This is a space where men speak truth and find the power to heal and transform. I'm Mike Della Rocha. Welcome to Sacred Lessons. Music is more than entertainment. It's a compass, a mirror, medicine. For centuries, communities of color have turned to song not just to survive, but to heal, to resist, and to reimagine what's possible. Welcome to Sacred Lessons. I'm Mike Della Rocha. This episode will explore how art and identity become pathways for healing and transformation. Today, I'm honored to welcome a dear friend and one of our generation's greatest songwriters who embodies this truth. Musician, changemaker, storyteller, Aloe Blacc. Aloe, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I was trying to think. We've known each other for, I think, 2 decades almost.
That's for sure.
And if not more. And absolutely in love with your family and in love with you for all that you stand for and all that you do from day one. And I want to get into it. But from hip hop to global anthems, what I love about you is there's not a box for an Aloe Blacc. When we talk, you're going to take me into a conversation about neuroscience and space travel. And Mr. Belafonte reminds us that we always have to be gatekeepers of truth. And so before we just get into it, how did you even get into this whole, like, what was the upbringing? Panamanian and all that?
Yeah, I had a pretty humble youth. My parents were both civil servants. So let's say my mom worked for the county in the courthouse. My dad was a Marine in the United States Marine Corps. Grew up in a small town that was not yet an incorporated city, and I had, I guess, an ideal childhood, both parents in the house, siblings, good schools. But hip hop was what got me into music really early. It was what gave me a voice and was my opportunity to engage with my friends in ways that were creative and dynamic, helped me design a personality and a character without having to follow the mainstream. And growing up as one of a handful of students of color and kids of color in my neighborhood, hip hop felt like it was my own and that I could communicate that, engage in it, and be enveloped by it in a way that, made me feel even more unique and even more special. And it educated me in a lot of ways in how to make music, but I think most importantly, how to stand in front of other people and communicate, and not just on stage, but just in life, without fear and with total confidence that I have 20 more words after this one that I'm delivering to you that are going to be relevant and the right words to say.
And then how did you make that transition? So hip hop gave you the foundation, the community, and then you make a transition to like soul.
It was a long process because hip hop was a long process. I mean, I started writing rhymes when I was 9 years old.
Wow.
And I started recording when I was 15, and I stopped doing hip hop every day, all day when I was 25. Not that I stopped it completely. I just stopped being my main modus of communication. And so that trajectory of
why did you stop that?
I didn't stop it completely, but it took a backseat because when I went to USC, was in university, and we had these T1 Ethernet lines, and we could basically download using LimeWire, Napster, any of those programs. We could download any song in the world that existed. And I started studying more music, more than what I had studied when I was making hip hop. Making hip hop, studying music because you're looking for samples. So you're listening to the greatest jazz records. You're listening to the greatest rock records. You're already hearing amazing musicianship, arrangements, production, and performance. But the records that you have access to are limited by where you can go to dig for records and whose parents have a record collection. And what the internet did at that point in time was gave us access to everything. And so where my parents had, they had salsa records, they had R&B records, they had pop records, but I didn't have bossa nova. So I was able to download Caetano Veloso, Antonio Carlos Jobim, Astrud Gilberto, Georgia Ben. I started really digging into the diaspora of Afro music and getting deeper there. And then started listening to records that my parents never had, singer-songwriters like Cat Stevens and Joni Mitchell. They didn't have those records. Maybe my friends' parents had them. I would hear, records from like Steely Dan and Leonard Skinner at my friend's house, but not at my house. So I had a chance to start digging into things that were not available to me. And I was impressed by the way that other lyricists were using words. I thought, I've done this hip hop thing. My crew loves me. When we go out and we battle other crews, they love me. I can get on stage and perform for strangers. They love me. Mm-hmm. That's cool. It works. But what else can I do with this voice and this love affair with words and linguistics? And I started finding in the Paul Simons and the Cat Stevens and the singer-songwriters like the pen of Bernie Taupin with Elton John, things that I really wanted to attempt to see if I could approximate their greatness and then also use melody at the same time, and I ended up falling in love with early soul music. So the Nina Simone and Sam Cooke, and the song that really got me was Change Is Gonna Come by Sam Cooke. And I'd gone on tour with this hip hop group called the Loot Pack in Europe. And the Loot Pack is made of Wild Child and Madlib. And on that particular tour, Wild Child is the MC for the most part. Madlib also MCs, but he used to make all the beats. And he didn't go on that tour. So I was a stowaway on that tour. There was an extra seat, an extra bed, and I took the extra seat and the extra bed. When I came home, Madlib's younger brother, Ono, is also a producer. He gave me a beat CD of 16 beats. And I recorded 15 raps. And on the last beat, I was like, I'm just going to sing Change Is Gonna Come. And he showed that to the label he was on, and they signed me as a vocalist, as a singer. So then my career became, it was almost a night and day. I was like, okay, if you're going to sign me as a singer, then I need to learn how to sing. And so all that studying I was doing with these other genres and these singer-songwriters started to get put to use.
I could, as two musicians, I can go all day on this conversation because I will share that you, more than anyone else I know, you study. Like everything, like I remember a conversation we probably had like 10, 15 years ago, and you're like, Mike, study lullabies. And I'd be like, why, Aloe? And you're like, because the psychology of how we consume is based upon our childhood, and there's a reason why these work to teach words or language, and then you're like, so I'm going to structure it in such a way where unconsciously you're not even going to know, why is this song hitting me so good? Because I studied hooks over centuries in time, and now it's all making sense.
It's one of those things, and of course, I want to be, careful to qualify that particular statement. And I'm talking about if you're looking for something that's going to be crossover potential, massive audience adoption, and there are ways to work that into what you do. But at the same time, in the same breath, I could say, and then throw that all out,
right,
and be as unorthodox as possible, just to create something that is such a breath of fresh air that it also grabs people's attention. And I appreciate a lot of different methods.
Yeah, all of it.
And they serve their purpose at different times. So I employ them at different times.
So let me ask you, growing up, it seems like in a predominantly white environment like I did, I'm Mexican, Chicano, you're Afro-Latino. Did that inform the way you thought about how I'm going to use my voice?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's code switching is what ultimately I learned, is the terminology in linguistics. And when I'm with my family, we speak a certain way. When we're with other folks from Panama, there's a certain dialect and communication. When I'm with my friends, there's a certain communication. And then when I'm in the academy, there's a certain type of communication. When I'm on stage as a soul artist versus as a hip hop artist, totally different communication styles. And, some will say, well, then what's your authentic self? And that's really, really difficult to identify, and it's almost an unfair question, because to use something like what's your authentic self would presume or connote that you are not genuine. And I would say I'm as genuine as they come.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's all of that.
It's all of that. That's the ultimate empath.
Exactly.
Right? I'm here and seeing you, and I'm with you. Not that I'm going to lumber into a space and just not try to accommodate the energy. It's interesting. It's sometimes, I enjoy people who don't accommodate energy. They're the ones that we all say, damn, they are the people who you always notice when they enter the room.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And then what's interesting is when you get down to the brass tacks of those particular individuals, you find that that's their strong suit, and it's a cover in a lot of ways.
Wow. So it's funny how spirit works, because I was just about to talk about the cover. Well, there was two things. One is you've worked with some of the biggest names in music. They've been grateful to work with you and vice versa. But music oftentimes is a mask for who we really are, or our persona that we wish we could be when the cameras aren't on or we're not on a stage. A lot of this conversation about masculinity and manhood is around performance. And so I guess my question really is, in your journey, how have you balanced that between, I'm the Aloe Blacc on stage, but then I'm the father at home, I'm the husband at home. And we both have strong wives that keep us grounded, but how do you balance that?
Oh, the balancing act is tough. When I'm home, I'm trying to be the best support that I can be because I'm often gone, right? And so the argument that happens a lot is you can't just come home and start trying to be in control of how the house works,
right?
Because that's creating too much confusion and drama. So I've got to sit back, and again, I got to be the ultimate empath and just blend in. And with that, it's also undoing some of the lessons or learning that I received as a youth coming up in a Latino household and a military household, right? So there's two dynamics that if anybody knows anything about those two dynamics, there's a masculinity play that's happening. And it took me time to metabolize that.
So let me dig deeper.
Yeah.
What is that play?
That play is like control. There's a deep hunger for control
on the man's part.
On my part. And there's a deep hunger for respect and discipline. And these are all the things that have been instilled in me, which I believe are necessary. Now, what may not be necessary is the approach that I learned, and having to unlearn it and try something different is what is the challenge and complicated. And it took a few books and a few years for me to really come to terms with this other way, this more gentle and more thoughtful way of being a dad and a man in the house and a husband.
And what was it? Well, I don't want to answer this, but I'm assuming it's a number of things. It's one, you saying, I want to parent differently, or learn from how my father parented me and take those gifts, but also things that I would do different. It's books, like you said. It's your own self-awareness, and it's that community around you, from Maya to friends. If I'm a man, I'm listening to this podcast, and I know that there's always been a tension and a struggle in my household with control and power. Because really, patriarchy, masculinity, it's all about power. And sometimes men of color, when we're disempowered by the society, we try to act out power in different ways that we can. But we know innately, like, there's got to be another way. So what would you tell a man that's like, hey, I want to do things differently? How did you do that, Aloe? How did you get to the point where I was like, I was raised in a military household, a Latino household. I saw these things. I'm going to raise my two children different.
I don't know. Mine was very rudimentary in the beginning in terms of my path to changing. I just reduced everything to absurdity except for a few things that I felt were the most important things, right? Nothing matters except the very important things. The money I make, the roof over my head, and the safety of my family. When anything comes close to the foci of those three things, then I'm a turn up.
Right.
Otherwise, it's whatever. It's nothing. Let it go. Slide off my back.
Let me ask you something, because so a lot of my book is unpacking this actual question that I was conditioned, brought up. Like a lot of guys, you got to provide.
Yeah.
You have to protect.
Yeah.
And our worth is actually defined by what we do. And I think those are all true. And something innately within me is trying to tease out, what is that fourth thing or third thing? Because those things are true. But from a human level, like what is. And like you and I, we're doing a lot of work in like Altadena, for example, with the fires.
Yeah.
And you actually came to one of the men's circles. But right when we got deep, there was other things. But these are men that lost their home. Mm-hmm. Some men's job was burnt down. So then they lost their job. And when we hold that sacred space, I'm looking at another man and all those things we just said, they don't have. So are they a man? And that's where it's like, well, what is then that fourth piece? Because we're going to turn up innately if someone threatens those we love or someone's threatening the roof over our head. But when you're literal ash, what is that? Or what are your thoughts on that? What is that other?
That's wild. So I haven't been in that situation. Of course, I've been in proximity and heard the stories and learning from other men who are experiencing this. But something that's bringing me some peace of mind is this understanding that this life experience is a life experience. And to then reduce even the things that I'm holding as important to absurdity is hard for me. But in the presence of these folks who have no option,
Right.
what I glean is your health and life and love are the only things left that actually matter. So can you preserve the love? And can you preserve your health, your life? Those are the things that that ultimately are really grounding me at this moment. My dad passed away last year. And prior to his passing, he had had a heart attack 3 years prior. That heart attack had him in the hospital with a quadruple bypass. That heart attack also coincided with a near-death experience. My dad told me that he floated above his body. He looked down. He saw himself lying lifeless. He saw the light. He went toward the light. He heard a voice, and the voice said, "It's not your time." And he came back. And that 3 years in between was the time that most amount of time I had ever really spent with him was that 3 years, almost daily, if not, weekly, for sure, because I moved him really close to the house, and he was with me and my kids and my wife very often. And it really was the eye-opening experience of love and health. Love and health. And since then, I've been diving really deep, almost on an addictive level of listening to other people's near-death experiences. And that's all they say. In conclusion, love is the answer.
Were there things during those 3 years? I'm assuming there was a lot of unspoken things that were spoken.
Oh, too much. And I don't know that we resolved everything. I mean, but I'm glad that we had as much dialogue and as much time as we could have.
Conversations we've been having is this thing about our fathers in particular. And other men have said, I started talking to my dad because he started to get old and frail. What is it within us that it takes a near-death experience for us to finally communicate with our fathers? Why do you think that is?
Man, our fathers are invincible, right? Growing up, your father's the person who can do anything and manage any situation. And when they become dependent, it's really eye-opening, and you recognize the tables have turned and now you're in that position. But it also then, for me, it makes me project further into the future. I'm like, oh, wow. One day I'm going to be in this position and my son is going to be in my position. What is the material of that future relationship, and how can I be sure that it's the kind of relationship I want?
How are you doing things differently with your kids than given that, what you just said?
Man, I mean, it's down to the point where it's like, mistakes are not failures. They're opportunities to learn. Let's learn from this. Consequences over punishment. And the consequences are known prior to the actions, right? Just figuring out how to do things so that it's not like I'm not living in the responsiveness and reactiveness of animal instinct. It's really sentient, conscious being, and forethought and intention. So that he learns that. And yesterday we had a huge breakthrough. He had a meltdown because his sister was able to do something. She's 2 years his senior that he wasn't able to do. And he was ultimately throwing a tantrum, but his tantrum was just kind of like silent and obstructive. He was trying to keep the family from engaging in an event, or because he wasn't able to do it. And eventually I said, you need to go outside, take a breath, and relax. And he didn't do that. He went to his room. But then 5 minutes later, he went outside. He got on the swing. And then 5 minutes after the swing, he came inside and he apologized to me. And I'll tell you, he's 9 years old. And when he walked in, he could have been 35. Like, there was a man talking to me. That was a really special moment. It was a huge growth moment for him, I think.
I want to honor you because I kind of see him as like your mini me. And our children learn from watching us. And, there's something ancestral and instinctual with your son going outside and being in nature for the wind to cool him down.
Yeah.
And we've maybe not put words to it, but ancestrally, that's what nature's there for. To have us take a centering, take a breath, get clarity, and then come in. And him to come and say, I'm sorry, or apologize, most men, like you say, don't even do. And so one, I want to honor the parenting and the lessons. Is there anything you learned in those 3 years with your dad? Or I guess, is there anything that was left unspoken that you didn't get a chance to tell your dad?
Oh, man, unspoken. I feel like we said everything. Like, we had the fights, even after we had the honoring moments. I feel like we said it all. I honestly do, and I feel like that's partially why when he had his second, I'm assuming it was a heart attack when he passed finally, that he was able to go. Because whatever was supposed to be done was done. I'm hoping. That's what I hope.
And go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know that there was much more to say. I feel like, man, I think I took the time to give him his flowers as much as I could.
And what's one lesson you took from that you're passing on to your children?
Just for me, it's more conversations. Let's spend time talking to one another, because we can get stuck in the roles of parent-child and never be in communication with one another, because we're always in transaction. And that, I think, there's a big miss if you don't ever get to communication and you're always in that age and generational transaction dynamic.
I mean, what you're teasing out is centering not just the conversation, but the balancing of power.
It is.
Right?
It really is. Yo, I mean, just to be able to explain things to my kids in ways that get them to grow in levels that I certainly would have benefited from at a younger age. You know, we had religion and we had church, but it wasn't the same kind of lesson. And all the lessons that I received from my parents were all in practicum, right? It's like through living life and seeing it.
Right.
My dad would be fixing the car, changing the brakes, changing the oil, and he'd have me there with him, right? And I would be pissed because I want to go do something else. And not that I learned how to do either of these things, but what I did learn is that anything is possible with your own bare hands. You just got to do it. I remember sitting down while he was tiling the bathroom floor, handing him the tools, doing some of the work with him, just upset. Like, why do I have to sit here and do this? Man, fixing the roof, fixing the plumbing, all of it was, the lesson ultimately was, you can do anything. I'm going to show you that it's possible. And so those are really important lessons. And for my kids, I've been working with them because I use words. I've been working with them from a very young age with using language and songs and words to educate them and grow them, because the mantras that we tell ourselves are really important. And so they have these affirmations, these words,
which I find
use.
A lot of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like in your songwriting, you're intentional about putting these mantras that you're growing into and have inherited into your songs, into the actual songwriting. So like, unbeknownst to the listener, and this is my assumption, but I'm singing along to something. Let's for example, The Man, right? It's one of your popular songs. I'm the man. But it's a loop. It's a mantra.
Yeah.
That's intentional, I'm assuming.
Super, super intentional. Well, I'll tell you, the releasing the song is intentional, right?
Yeah.
Because I've probably written other songs that aren't positive mantras, but there's no reason for me to put that poison into the world.
Right.
And I wrote it just because of an exercise, you know? Like, I can think a million different concepts.
Right.
I only have enough time to write a few, and I only have even less time to release them, and even less time to promote them. So ultimately what gets shared with the public are the things that I think are worthy of the entire world hearing and benefiting from. But you know, I'm capable of just as much silly music as I am the good music I put out.
Well, you also mentioned something right now about, you didn't say this word, but it was like toxic, or like the other stuff that you could put out.
I mean, it's already out there. So my goal is to counterbalance, you know, to be light amidst the darkness.
Right.
Because all of the things that you could tell yourself that are negative, that could keep you down, all of that's available.
It all exists.
And most people make the choice to consume it. You are what you eat.
Well, let me ask you something, because what I've always admired from afar before we met, and then knowing you, is you've been consistent on this message of love, vulnerability, but as a form of justice. You've always used your music for healing since I met you. Now, this is I didn't know you during the hip hop days.
Well, the hip hop days is almost the same, just because I was a big fan of the native tongue family, and they were in the early 90s making hip hop that was a pro Black. It was affirming your heritage and your rightful place in the world as a citizen of the world, regardless of your color, but also because of your color.
Right.
And that was really formative for me. the KRS-Ones, the Native Tongues, Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, Jungle Brothers, even NWA, as vulgar, misogynistic, and violent as they were also pro-Black. And that's what I gleaned from it, was this uprightness in the face of oppression and real danger.
Which, in this particular exact moment in time,
Yeah.
how do you see yourself as one of those voices?
The answer is love. I mean, I keep thinking about, how do you rage against the machine? And the only real way is with love. Because to fight fire with fire only gets you burned, and the machine doesn't process love. And so in the end, what do we want? And whatever we want in the end is the tool that we should use to change today and to improve tomorrow.
So maybe, when I asked about how your words, absurdities, you get rid of the absurdities and what matters, right? Maybe then that fourth stool, if you will, would be love. But the hard part for men is love is oftentimes defined as something like passive or too vulnerable to the definition. It's kind of like nonviolence, right? Like people say, oh, nonviolence, no. Armed rebellion, for example. Not knowing the ethos of nonviolence is really strength. It's like inner strength.
So for me, it's like longevity. If you want to play the long game, what is going to work in the long game? And there are a couple of ways to look at the long game. One is the long game on Earth, and the other is the long game after your existence on Earth. And in all the examples that I can find where things have worked well for a long time, love is at the center of it, right? So, I mean, it's a difficult principle to put into practice every day, all day. Does that mean I have to love everyone on the other side of the aisle at all levels of administration? And do I have to love people on the other side of the ocean who are committing heinous genocidal acts? Do I have to love the person behind bars that, committed violence against my loved ones? The hard answer is yes. But what better test for manhood?
To show true strength.
What better test for strength?
Bell Hooks defines love as an action. It's a choice. Even parenting, like, reading her trilogy, just because you're a parent doesn't mean you love your child. That's her. You have to choose that for the long game. And so right now in this moment, what would you tell men that said, no, Aloe, I can't love. Right now I need to be harder. I need to protect my community. People are being hunted, kidnapped, stolen off of streets of LA and coming to your neighborhood if it's not there already. How do you hold that tension?
The antidote to entropy and the heaviest gravity is love. And so if you want the pendulum to keep swinging, punch it. If you want the pendulum to stop, hug it. It's the heaviest gravity. It's the antidote to entropy. It calms everything.
And then this, I agree. This is probably the new, because gender, like race, is a construct. And even when I've been on tour with the book, I struggle because it's really about energy.
Yeah.
It's not about male, female. It's like we all encompass all these energies, but this system, machine, is really wanting to tear apart all of our identities and not just accept the fullness of who we are as people. And I've been trying to figure out, and I don't know the language, and maybe this is why we're in conversation, because you are a lover and studier and like words. Like you said, you've taught your children how to communicate. And for too long, men are not taught how to communicate. We're taught to dominate, to control, to suppress, which is everything that's being thrown at us right now. So it's almost like we're asking, man, recondition yourself, because your automatic response will be meet violence with violence. But the truest essence of who we are is actually the opposite of that. And that is the new world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It does make sense. It's just hard to get there.
Yeah.
We are conditioned from our parents and from society around us and media in a certain way. And although we all have access to religions and churches and these kind of philosophies, putting them into practice is very difficult. And we don't have great examples of putting anything into practice. And so I always think about the very unique example of Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 3/4 years in jail. And he came out and he did not harbor animosity and he did not call for violence. That is the example. We have the examples. They're few and
what
far
would you
between.
tell someone right now then? Because it's true, right? All these forces around us that is feeding us noise, negativity. Like you said, we can find all that stuff. What's a practical way for us to like remember who we are?
Oh, wow. A practical way to remember who we are.
You know, because there's all these different steps. But if I'm listening, I'm like, yo, I got it, Ala. Yes, in theory, I agree. Practice is hard, like you said. Like, how do I get to a point to love the orange man, knowing that that's a wounded child? But if I want the hug might do more than anything else. Practice is hard, but we do things. Both of us do things to get us to a point where we can consider and act upon those opportunities. But what would you tell someone that's like, bro, I'm not there? Or how can I get there? What's one thing I should do to get there?
Wow. Good question. All right. If you're not there, what is one thing you could do to get there? Let me think about this for just a second. Maybe I'll talk through it and I'll divine an answer that makes sense. But I've never thought about how to train anybody other than my kids. Okay. Let's start with the words you tell yourself. So start with forgiving yourself and forgiving everyone around you. Number one. And this is just me making this up as we go. I've not really deeply thought about how I could educate someone else.
And I appreciate you jumping in because I know you like to think about it.
One of my sayings early on when I got married to Maya, was I don't raise adults. So we have to come to each other already, grown. I'm not trying to raise somebody else. But here you go asking me how to raise an adult. Okay.
Well, ironically, that's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah, it is. Change the words that you use to yourself, how you speak about yourself. Change the words that you use around other people and how you speak about other people. That's number one. The basic thing you could do is number one, stop with judgment and negative gossip. That's an easy first step. Hopefully, an easy first step. Give yourself grace and respect the possibility of who you can be, that you can be a person who is more loving. When you feel comfortable in that space and that, then extend it, okay? Who's someone that you don't think that you normally would want to accept? And start leaning in. I don't know the names of these people, but there are a couple of stories I've heard of African Americans who befriended grandmasters of the KKK and flipped them. completely converted them to becoming not just ex-members, but allies in humanity, let's say. Maybe not allies in the movement for Black lives, but at least allies in humanity. So it's totally possible. And I'm not expecting anybody to go that far. I haven't gone that far. But to what extent can you transform yourself and your immediate family, friends, community, and transform the relationship you have with yourself and those people, and then extend them to outside? So words. What are the words? I just put together this sheet of affirmations for my kids recently. If I can remember all of them. I am love. I am kind. I am capable. I am brave. I am mercy. And so just the words that, and then you have to understand what the words mean too. So you can't just say the words, but you have to really fully understand what the words mean. And you have to really fully agree that you can accept that, yes, I am mercy. I will give people grace and I will forgive them and I will not judge them. Very hard.
Very hard. But very doable.
It's possible.
Thank God I love you so much because we are hopeless romantics. I got a nickname one time by Bo Taylor. They call me, he's like, hey, bro, you're milk money. I mean, no. Yeah. Milk money. No, is that what he said? Yeah. He said, you're milk money. I was like, why are you calling me that, bro? He's like, because you were that one kid in middle school that would walk down and we would punk you for your milk money, but you would still come because at some point you were going to like flip us. And then we'd be like, hey, we can't take his money anymore. Let him pass. So your milk money. And I always thought, and this guy, he helped broker truce in South LA of gangs, right? And this is someone that when he walked in the room, you knew he walked in the room. And I always look, being a punk kid, I'm like, I got to befriend that dude. One, because I'll be safe, but two, that's like the highest form of respect. And I don't know why Bo's spirit just came to me right now, but people would have said, there's no way you're going to do a truce between like Crips and Bloods or these rival neighborhoods. There's just no way. And it was people the same complexion because the society and the structures, the conditions, just acting out their pain because we didn't have any other ways to act out. And Bo would say, people thought there was no way the violence and the homicides are going to go down. But I knew it was. I was crazy enough to think so. And it kind of reminds me that's love in action, actually. I love, because the affirmation started with I am. And once you're like rooted in the I am, you realize there is no us, them. It is I, it is we, because a lot of native traditions, even my native ancestry, there's no word for I.
Exactly. They don't acknowledge the independent self.
Right. So what I'm taking from this is like everything you just said off the dome. Here's 3-4 things you consider, right? If you flip it rather than I into we, maybe we could see the humanity in each other.
Yeah, a lot of, there are really interesting analyses of societies that have the collective we in all of the language that they use.
Right.
And Japan would be one of those societies. The collective we is really important. And so individuation is, and in some of the indigenous cultures, is kind of psychotic. And having more than you need is a psychosis, So we all exist and we all share and we are all one.
Right.
This is certainly not conducive to a capitalistic society. It's important in capitalism for it to thrive that everyone feels like an individual and that they need to express their individuality. And in order to do that, they need to buy something to demonstrably show that they are different and separate. But I don't think that it's mutually exclusive. I think we can still have the collective we in a capitalistic society. That just means that all of us have to understand the function of capitalism and who we are within this system and how we navigate it by choice rather than blindly.
So since we all grew up in Zapatismo, there is a possibility for many worlds to exist in one world.
Yeah, I think so.
Because that's what I take from what you just said, because that's like a whole nother podcast I want to go down episode. But this idea of like, there are no binaries. So even in talking to you right now, I'm checking my own self being like, if I believe there's a system that is oppressing us or myself, then I got to either change the system, retool the system, or create another system. And they can coexist. They don't have to be either or. And I feel like right now we're in this time where everything is either or, me, you, us, them. And that's getting away from the fact that we can coexist, we can co-build. And then that's, to me, the biggest thing that I see with men is this binary that's preventing them or inhibiting them from just expressing who they are. Because they're afraid of like, well, I'm not that, so I got to hide who I am. Or I self-harm or harm someone else that I love. And this is this journey I'm on, at least, to unpack all that. Because people would like, activists would jump on you right now. What are you talking about, Aloe? No, capitalism, down with capitalism, blah, blah. But I'm like, when did we take that? When did we be Aloe's 9-year-old and go outside and take a breath on the swing and be connected to the child that didn't know about all this stuff, but knew we could play together in the sandbox?
Yeah. There are multiple possibilities. We ultimately, you just have to just acknowledge who you are and the power that you have in being part of a system of love and community. And that, like you were mentioned before, that the constructs that we operate based on and that kind of fuel our activism, it's a crazy cognitive dissonance for me because I understand that they're constructs. And so while I might be on the front lines as an activist trying to chant down Babylon, the construct that I'm trying to chant down is just that. And so at what point do we, step out of the matrix and just say, okay, can we all agree that this is a construct? And the more that we fight it, again, the more we punch the pendulum, the more it swings. But there are, I guess we all are very tied to our mortality. And so you do what you feel is going to keep you safe. And hopefully it does. But if we can figure out really how to transform, I think that's the nonviolent resistance is the best method. It is I think the most effective method because it is a type of love.
It is. And I guess just to wrap this segment piece, and keep coming back to knowledge of self and love of self, and seeing love as the strongest energy, strongest force that we do have. So if I was talking about constructs and like masculine energy, that's supposed to be like rugged, tough, don't cry, be strong. Well, the strongest force in the energy is love. But we as men are not taught how to access that, express that, or be that. But in this conversation, you've given little nuggets, how you're doing it with your own children, that I can glean to do that with the adults. You know, and I know you made the promise, Maya, I'm not here to train adults, but right now we're in this circus time where I'm trying to figure out through art, through writing, through music, through community, how do we reprogram ourselves as a society? And a lot of the harm, unfortunately, is being perpetuated by men, that I'm a part of that one identity. So I'm like, okay, cool, words.
Yeah.
Grace, and reaching out to someone that is really a mirror for the things I might actually not like about myself, which is true always, which is why my negativity or like, is so like that.
I was gonna say, what really made me think about it was we spend a lot of time, but in particular, you and I, and then the people who we hang with, a lot of time engaged in criminal justice reform and the redemptive work that happens in prisons.
Right.
And then who are we to not offer that grace and potential for redemption to anybody on the other side of the aisle? Right?
Yo, yes.
Yeah.
Go.
That's all I wanted to say. I was like, oh, wait a minute. So you mean I can go spend a day with a literal murderer.
Exactly.
And then go and fight for that person's right to reenter society, but then not want to acknowledge that this other person who just has an ideological violence against me is not worthy of the same grace. That flipped me. That made me recognize, okay, love just has to be love. It's going to be hard, but I don't want to be a hypocrite.
Exactly. That's probably why we're still, hopefully we'll always be friends, because even with this podcast, I've been having internal conversations like, who do you interview and why? And I literally use that same example. I'm performing in San Quentin in a month. You know, or to even get deeper, I have family members that were just released from there for violence against children, which is the biggest no-no. But does that mean, like exactly like you said, that I don't give them the opportunity to heal? Do I not create a space for all of us to heal? And once the answer is yes, then I feel I lost a part of myself. Because then I'm like, to your point, we're replicating the same thing that we're trying to supposedly like transform or take down or whatever. So I honor that. So I want to dig in a little bit more just around, there's so much intention into what you put out into the world. And just as a creative musician, storyteller myself, can you give us a glimpse into your creative process? Like, how do you get to a point where you're putting out this mantra that becomes a global anthem that allows people to like recenter or feel good about themselves? Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah. A lot of times the words will come to me first, and it could be a phrase. It could be just a couple of words or one word. And then it could also come with melody. And I'm playing with these ideas for weeks at a time, just in my head, developing the melody or the phrasing. And eventually I get to, maybe putting the idea down as a solid poem, or I get to the studio and start working on chords for the progression. But ultimately it's like, what story can I tell? And sometimes it comes from meeting people and hearing stories, or having experience for myself that I feel like is worthy of writing down, and then synthesizing the entire intention into a song. I have a few songs that really, really, I feel strongly about. One I wrote for my dad before he passed, and I got a chance to perform it for him, called Daddy Told Me So. And for me, the intention here was, one, to honor my father, but there's also this lack of this conversation in popular music. And not to say that I made a pop song, it's more of a coffee house acoustic kind of song, but should it make it into the popular sphere, these words will stand as a reference to the father-son relationship, in especially coming from a Black man, where the father-son relationship is absent from almost all of our modern music. Maybe it's in other genres. I venture to say that it's pretty absent from the highly saturated market of heartbreak, anxiety, depression songs. So my thought is, what are the songs that can counterbalance the messages that are being put out into the world? There's a song I heard years ago where one of the lyrics was "Live fast, die young," which is, a catchphrase, a common phrase, but I really feel strongly about how the words you use can create your reality. And I think it's important to be careful with the words you use, and even the words that you play with. It's almost like words are a loaded gun. And you could be playing with it and pointing it around, and you're not going to shoot it. But sometimes accidents happen. Mm-hmm. And so while these songs are on the radio and we're playing with them and we don't really mean them, sometimes accidents happen. Sometimes all that play makes you so well equipped that this is who you are now. And that "Live fast, die young" lyric, I just felt like, man, there's got to be an antidote to that song on the radio right now. So I wrote a song called "Live My Life," which literally said the opposite. I don't want to die young because I feel my life has just begun. So many things I want to do before I'm done. I don't want to die young. It's just finding, and I could basically, I have so much content that I could write just by playing devil's advocate from what I hear on the radio. And it's been fodder for a lot of songs, but I also have these downloads of ideas that I've got to write and get out for myself anyway. So, finding ways to humanize everyone's conditions, from people who are well off to the people who aren't, and like showing that there's a lot of similarity more than difference between us all.
I want to do just a follow-up. I don't know if this is the right word, but given that we, as artists, as folks trying to improve our world, we've been blessed to stand on the shoulders of like huge giants. I was referencing before you came Wayne Kramer, Mr. Belafonte, his books here. Do you feel a sense of responsibility? Like when I hear you talk right now, do you feel that's responsibility? Do you feel it's a calling? Do you feel like, Mr. B passed on the baton to a lot of us? Like, what do you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a sense of responsibility. He passed the baton. He's expecting something from us. And the reason why I think I was called to him is because I was expecting something from myself. And so it just kept me in community.
What were you expecting from yourself?
For myself, expecting to be someone who is remembered for making the world a better place. And not just someone who won a bunch of awards, sold a bunch of records. Because to me, the value ultimately is in whose lives did you change for the better, not in did I get the bag and then do nothing for anyone else? None of my heroes were rich, right? And the ones who were used their privilege in the most amazing ways, like Mr. B, right? He was rich, but then again, somebody had to pay for security for Martin Luther King.
And the funeral.
You know?
Yeah.
And the private transportation, and sometimes the groceries for the family back at home. So, you know, there's an education and there's a responsibility. I think we all understand what we're supposed to do as artists because of folks like him. Had a chance to, just a lucky chance to meet Bono and The Edge recently. And we had this conversation about our mutual love and respect for Mr. B. And in that conversation, Bono told me a story that led to a song that I wrote where, you know, Martin Luther King was in a meeting with the NAACP and with Harry, and everybody was bemoaning the relationship with the White House at the time, and in particular the Attorney General, who was Bobby Kennedy. And they thought that he was being intransigent and he was not really coming to terms with helping with the civil rights movement at that particular time. And Dr. King got incensed, and he was really upset that people were speaking badly, and he just slammed his hand down on the table and he said, "I want you to stop talking bad about Bobby Kennedy." And now this is the story that I'm getting from Bono. And I thought that I heard everything from Mr. B, but I didn't hear this particular story. And Dr. King said, "I want you to find me one good thing." And when he said the words "one good thing," when Bono said those words, the hair on my arm stood up, and I was like, that's a song. Because I could, you know, I'm listening to the story, but I'm seeing the whole image, and I'm feeling the energy, and this demonstrative from Dr. King to the room to find one good thing. Ultimately, Mr. B, you know, extended the olive branch, befriended Bobby Kennedy, and became the best of friends with him. And Bobby Kennedy was a huge instrumental ally in the movement for civil rights. And it was just that concept of unconditional love, like find one good thing. And that led to a song that I ended up writing. I'm so glad Bono didn't write it first, even though he knew the story years before I knew it. But yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I hadn't heard that one either. And by the way, give my cell phone number to Bono. I need to have a conversation with them. Thank you, Aloe. One good thing. One good thing. I was just, last week I was in Colorado and I got to see for the third time Mr. B's film that you're prominently in. I've seen it like 4 times. And man, I was weeping extensively. And part of the reason why I was weeping was, one is my relationship with Carmen Perez. Because she's given 20 years to the gathering. And part of the reason is because my own self-doubt about being an artist, because of Carmen, Mr. B paid for me to go perform in Berlin, Ireland. You know, this Black icon. Like, there's no Jay-Z without a Mr. B. He's the first artist to sell 1 million records.
For real. The first artist. Doesn't matter what color.
All genres. Yeah. And I don't want to say single-handedly because it's never like that, but paid for the civil rights movement to unfold.
I mean, he put his white friends in a headlock and but they, you know, not a headlock. They all came willingly. They all helped.
But he found one good thing.
That's the huge thing. You need folks like that in the movement.
I mean, the head of the NRA for like 20 years was one of the people that was speaking alongside him, Charlton Heston, at the March on Washington. That's crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just putting that into context today. Like,
Could you imagine
No,
if he had just said, no, Charlton's not the right guy because we have too many ideological issues. No, you find the thing that you can stand together on, and let's work on that. And hopefully by that proximity,
right,
I can win you to my side even more.
right. So I guess the calling from Mr. B, hanging out with both of our fathers, wherever they are in the spirit world.
Mm-hmm.
The question that was never answered, maybe that's our question, is everything we're talking about is leading up to the Civil Rights Bill passing. And then when it does pass, the conversation that Mr. B also shared with us, everyone should be excited. And they're in a room, Mr. B, Martin Luther King Jr., all of these folks, and Martin Luther King is sitting there in deep, somber reflection.
Crazy.
And Mr. B goes up to him, hey, we just did this. We just passed the Civil Rights Act. We just got rid of desegregation. And you remember what he said?
Yeah, it's the fire quote.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that we desegregated into a burning house.
Mm-hmm.
And so our call today is to how do we become firefighters? But he asked that question 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So our question for us isn't even necessarily the firefighters, but it's like the world builders in a lot of ways. How do we become the firefighters and the architects at the same time to draw one person in? And
but maybe that's what we were talking about earlier, the constructs, right?
Yeah.
They fought so hard to dismantle the legalities around a construct.
Right.
And I think that's ultimately, just to think about what Dr. King was processing was like, oh man, there's something bigger than this construct that we really should have been going after.
Right.
But hey, we can do what we can, one step at a time as humans. We figure these things out in stages and steps.
One good thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's a perfect segue. So we end every episode with what we call the Sacred Five. Because there's so much, man. Thank you very much. But they're like I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You answer in one word or a sentence. But it's our way to give like practical steps, kind of like what I was asking earlier, for folks that are on their own journey. And so I'll just ask them, and then whatever comes to you instinctually, you just share.
Okay.
So the first one, name 3 things that make you feel safe, connected, and whole.
3 things that make me feel safe, connected, and whole. My wife, my music, and my spirituality.
Beautiful. Hear that, Maya? Number 1. Number 2, this one I'm actually excited to hear. What song, book, or prayer brings you back to yourself?
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's a tough one. 1.
As a musician, it's probably more of a song. And it's probably a song like Lean on Me by Bill Withers. It says and does everything that I want to do. And it says and does everything that I want to do as an artist.
Beautiful. Love it. What's one daily ritual or practice that grounds you?
It's dinner with the family. It's probably the most grounding because we're all there. In the morning, it's usually me with the kids or my wife with the kids if I'm out of town. But being able to just sit and actually more than dinner, it's the fact that my kids, they're getting older and they're a little bit too old now, but we still take time before we go to bed to just sit and talk to them. And to me, that's really, really grounding.
Beautiful. What's one small action that a listener can take on their healing journey?
Forgive yourself.
Okay.
Right away.
Right away. Yeah. Why not let it go?
You have to forgive yourself. If you let it go, it shows up in negative ways in your relationships with other people. But just from a physiological sense, it manifests as disease. Mm-hmm. So let it go.
Let it go.
Right away.
And last one, share a one-line blessing or quote that inspires you.
One-line blessing or quote. That inspires me is, I am my ancestors' greatest dream, wildest dream. I've heard it said a few different ways.
I love that one too. Where can folks that want to continue to walk alongside you, beside you on your journey, where's any projects coming up or places that folks can keep tabs on you?
I think the best place to keep tabs is on my Instagram account. But aside from social media, what I'm asking for folks to do is to tell me stories. The last album I released is called Stand Together. It's an album full of songs that have been inspired by nonprofit organizations and positive social missions. In the spirit of that, I want to make my next album, or a future album, if it's not my next, inspired by the stories that are delivered to me through my website from people all around. So if you have a really powerful personal story or a story that you can tell me from someone else, share it with me through the website.
Is that aloeblac.com?
aloeblac.com/contact, or just hit the contact button.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you. I usually end trying to summarize, the gems from the conversation. And on my mind, I always thinks in threes. So I was thinking threes, but honestly, dude, like there's so many things I want to say right now. But I guess what I will just center is, one is the power of communication in words, which is interesting because, we recorded the intro before the convo and it was all centered on words. One is like what we tell ourselves and what we tell others, because there's magic and power in words. Two, the mantras that we do tell ourselves so that we can remember our divinity and our power. Three, fatherhood with grace is acknowledging power, but also the beauty, the wonder, the experience in our own children. And that teaching ourselves or reteaching ourselves how to communicate with each other is fundamental. And the last thing I'll say, just because I'm on the threes, the strongest force in the universe is love, no matter what society tells us. And if we can harness that, then anything is possible, like the mantra you tell your children. But also in this moment in time, forces want us not to believe in that power, which is divine power. It's the power of the cosmos. It's love. It's not fear. It's not division. But if we can actually embody that, I guess that's ultimately what I'm trying to get at. Bro, I thank you. I honor you. I appreciate you, but I love you for every single day, really thinking cognitive, like consciously, how am I going to embody love in the interactions I have with myself and others wherever I go? And so I'm blessed to know you. I'm blessed that this moment in time, your songs are in the world. I'm blessed for you modeling how do we reparent ourselves and our children in a healthy, loving way. And I am hopeful for what's to come, because we are firefighters, but we're also architects.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Right on. Thank you.
Yeah. Ashe.
Sacred Lessons is a production of iHeart's My Cultura podcast network, Sacred Lessons Media, and the Prince Group. For more of your favorite shows, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.